IVDA meeting, and when Supervisor Gonzalez gets here, she'll take over. But we are going to have closed session, but before that, we'll go ahead and ask and see if anybody from the audience wants to make any comment. Seeing none, we'll recess to closed session, and then we'll do a roll call when we get back. All right, thank you. All right, we'll come back to order from closed session. Mr. Attorney, is there any reportable action?
No, there is not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and do the roll call.
Please state your name for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro. Isaac Suchel.
Thank you. Member from the City of Loma Linda.
Dusty Rigsby.
Ovi Popescu.
Thank you. Members from the City of San Bernardino.
John Valdivia.
Theodore Sanchez.
Bessie Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Councilmember Sanchez to lead us in that, please.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No items, sir.
Okay. And if anybody has any conflict of interest, please let me know as we get through the agenda. We'll move on to informational items. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, I'll start with the personnel update. We've had this on for a little while because we've been doing recruitment, trying to get a new director of finance. And I'm pleased to report that we have had an offer and an acceptance. And,
all in 1 week, 1 month?
Well, we've been at it for a while, but yeah, the gentleman's name is Mark Cosino, and he's had extensive experience in both local government and private sector. And Alka helped me vet him a little bit. She actually had worked with him in a prior, experience, and didn't tell me I was crazy for wanting to hire the guy, but he's much like Mr. Garay had, is highly credentialed, CPA, certified fraud examiner, quite a bit of experience. Lives locally in Highland, so it's a short commute. So we expect at your next meeting you'll be able to meet Mark. It will be confusing because we'll now have a lot of Marks around here, but that's all right. So it's a good name. The next one I wanted to touch on is certainly IVDA. You all are investing heavily in our transportation system out there, and we wanted to give a quick overview on the Mountain View construction. As you've seen in my weekly updates, we've happily commenced work this year, but for particularly our San Bernardino colleagues, if you get questions about road closures or why traffic is detoured the way it is, certainly, point people to Mr. Harris. We also have this on the IVDA website, and then the respective city managers have been informed as well. But if we could move on to the next slide, I wanted to kind of fill you in. That's a really messy graphic, but it shows you the actual detour plan. Obviously, the Mountain View at Mission Creek, right at the flood control channel crossing, that's where the road is completely closed because we have to reconstruct that entire bridge. SBCTA at the same time is working around both sides of the rail corridor, ready to get in and put their track section in once the bridge is reconstructed. That bridge structure, though, will actually be installed in place on site, so it will take quite a bit of coordination. Utility coordination is going very well, though, and as I said, both San Bernardino and Loma Linda city managers have been very helpful to coordinate resources. Next slide, if you could. So obviously, Griffith Company is our general contractor. And they have all their specialty subcontractors underneath them out there. The bridge structure is the biggest investment out of this. And then once that bridge is in place, then they'll actually work on the road widening and curb and gutter and sidewalk and get us a real street out there. But they are a heavy highway contractor by trade, and this is well within their capability. Next slide, if you could. So there you go. As we say in the construction world, we're moving dirt, and that will continue now for quite a few weeks. Next slide, if you could. and that's them getting in there to re-engineer and redesign the channel itself. As you heard from Mr. Harris, we actually have to relocate the bridge structure about 10 feet to the south to make a separation for the rail track, so it actually realigns the channel itself. So when I say you all are building flood a brand new channel, you are. This is not the original alignment. Next slide, if you could. And that's it from the other angle there, looking back. And that's looking southbound right there. So that's after the rain. And that I can't even see. So, but we wanted to just kind of give you a snapshot of this. And again, we'll provide additional updates as the construction progresses. Our SBCTA members, I think, hear from time to time from my colleague, Mr. Wolf, about how we got to get on schedule and all that. So I had some fun with him the other day. His rail guys were in our way. We had to call on it, but it's going to be a nice corridor once we're finished with it. So then, thank you for your support in launching this project. It's long overdue, and I think the business community is going to be pleased after we wrap it up. That concludes my report.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Seeing none from the board, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do you hear a motion?
Second.
From Mr. Navarro and Mr. Sucho, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Moving on to board action items. Number 6, consider and adopt proposed budget adjustment for fiscal 2019-2020. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, and I apologize on this one. I was multitasking poorly last week, and in your original agenda packet, you got a walk down memory lane because a budget adjustment from a prior meeting got stuck in here rather than this one. So yeah, the revised item was sent out, thankfully, by our clerk of the board, and it's less money, so that helps too. But what we're requesting here are two things. One is on our airport side, as you all know, we have done this little air show thing for a number of years, but with the amount of workforce development we need to prepare for here in local hiring, I thought it might be a good idea to get IVDA out there a little bit in front of the community and help out with some support. So we're requesting a $50,000 sponsorship for the upcoming air show. Obviously, with everything that we're dealing with the coronavirus, we are definitely engaged in discussions with Hangar 24 to make sure that we are up to speed and that as far as events go, that we're following proper guidance on that. But currently, we are scheduled to pull this thing off, and we want to be prepared to do so. The $50,000 will actually go to offset security expenses. So obviously, City of San Bernardino has a significant role to play in providing police support and traffic control. And then the San Bernardino County Sheriff on site also supports some resources there. So that helps supplement their volunteer crews and their costs. The second one is some seed money to start the initiative that you all included in our business plan update previously. Supervisor Hagman, I think, has been talking to me about 20 years to try to do something like a UAS test facility, and pleased to report we've got some great traction in that. But the county, I think, will be moving here through their budget cycle to do a matching contribution in that partnership, and I'd like you all to consider taking the lead because this is an exciting new workforce opportunity. So those expenses, again, are to develop the initial plan and curricula, coordinating with FAA, and be able to start marketing the test capability. So those are it. Cash on hand in the general fund is sufficient to cover these increases, and happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I just want to salute the staff for taking that bold action on the UAS facility. I think that's that's certainly a great opportunity for us to attract more economic resources here. When we began training our workforce to be competitive and starting those curriculum processes to get started, I think it's a win for us, so.
Well, and I appreciate all of your help in helping to get the word out. This is kind of exciting, it's new, and it also will help support existing programs
Yep.
in the community. For instance, the Airframe and Power Plant training program at Valley College. This is also new curricula for tomorrow's mechanics, too, because it is the future of aviation.
So the $75,000, it'll be for curriculum, but where is it going to be designed, and where's this money actually going? Is there an institute or something that's commandeering the money?
It'll
or-
actually start to cover some initial startup expenses because we are getting a permit to operate from Chief Muncie and the Fire JPA. And so we need to create some promotional materials and a business plan. And so the expenses are going to that initially, but also to actually get some storage facilities on site, because what we're actually asking these providers and manufacturers to do is consider storing their products on site. And we need a proper enclosure to be able to do that securely. So that's where the 75K initially goes. I don't anticipate using it all before fiscal, but I wanted to be conservative.
Sure.
And make sure we're covered.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll also be hopefully creating a new website, so that when we're trying to get people into the region, we can point everybody to the site itself.
And I know you're going to go into more detail on the item which is following
Yes.
that. But the question I had is, why is it the IVDA pursuing this, and why are we not just transferring the money to the airport and let the airport run it, since it would be an airport project?
I knew you would ask that question. So in the case of the facility itself, the current fire training center, that 20-acre site is subject to a lease, a ground lease, from the airport to the fire JPA.
Okay.
The provision in that lease, though, is that because the grant constructed the facility, the airport is not to be a financial participant in the facility itself. The IVDA, being an economic development enterprise looking at workforce development, can easily contribute to the operations without bifurcating the lease.
So why we couldn't just transfer the money to the airport and let the airport do it?
We'd have to amend the lease, and County Fire really doesn't want to do that at this point. The idea is with IVDA, the proceeds from this aren't restricted to just airport reinvestment. It can
Yeah,
be used for other
okay.
things.
All right. So moving forward, it would be the IVDA that's going to oversee and
Mhm.
ensure that this money is properly used and,
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And that way, with oversight with you all, you're looking at that along with our auditors and everything
Okay.
else to make sure it's run properly. But the county fire and Crafton Hills do have some structural limitations in staffing for it, and this allows us to supplement that and really get a good business manager for the program itself.
Okay.
So that's the concept.
I think we already had a motion, a second for this item. No?
Move for
I-
approval.
I thought you motioned and, no? Well. Second. All right, so we got the mayor for the first and Mr. Sucho for a second.
Yep.
So with that, all those in favor say aye. Very good. Thank you. Let the record reflect that Supervisor Gonzalez has joined us. Uh-oh, what does that mean?
What is-
A figment of your imagination.
You're here but not here.
All righty. We'll move on to item number 7, which is basically consider report, discuss a report on the UAS testing and training concept. And I
Okay,
think-
so there's a theme here. We were talking about UAS facilities. This is a brief overview of our recent activity, trying to develop this new program with the county. And I'll start, if we can go to the next slide, as to what we've kind of envisioned here working with County Fire and Supervisor Hagman's team, is that we can actually create a testing facility for UAS products. These are commercially available or also prototypes that are being tested for commercial markets now. The 20-acre site where the fire training center is a good launch pad, if you will, for this type of work. But we can also dovetail into supplementing new educational and career training opportunities for our future workforce. Being that it's also on a county fire-run facility, it's a natural to also showcase the latest in emergency response technology, because our county fire is already using UAS in the field. There's new technologies that they can be exposed to. We can have exhibitions out there, and the Forest Service right next door is also very much invested in UAS now. And the concept here is showcase safe drone flight, because of course, as a supervisor knows, our county took leadership to the leadership position in adopting an ordinance to enforce safe drone flight a few years ago. This particular site, you can actually exhibit right then, right there, the latest and greatest, and not just detection, but kill switch technology and other devices that are out in the market space right now. Collectively, that team can also take a leadership position in advocating for regulatory reform. So the FAA has updated their guidance a few years ago. They made it better. There's still a lot more that needs to be done because it doesn't quite cover the span of how quickly the technology is developing, for one, but the opportunities for adoption out there in the open market. Next slide, if you could. So the current working group that we have here is, of course, IVDA with the permit from County Fire, San Bernardino County, thanks to Supervisor Hagman, County Fire, the USDA Forest Service, Unical. Why is Unical in there? Well, in addition to being a worldwide aircraft parts leader, they too invest in developing technologies and have some other subsidiary entities that are doing testing in the detection and kill switch technologies. So we've asked them to the party. Hopefully then we can expand this net out to include actual manufacturers and assembly entities in the program itself. And I'm proud to report that last Thursday, Supervisor Hagman helped us host some very, very smart people from Caltech who came out to exhibit their latest drone prototypes and actually did a test flight. So we were able to get FAA approval for them to do an on-site test right at the center. It also allowed the Forest Service and County Fire to see what new technologies are available, because they are looking to get trial in the field. So pretty exciting stuff. Next slide, if you could. And so the services, as we mentioned, safe drone operation. So it's a safe forum to be able to showcase the best and the brightest, brand new products, the capability to do maintenance on these aircraft. So, you know, we have the traditional A&P mechanics, but they need a workforce to be able to repair these devices, and that curricula is just now being discussed. And then the first responder technologies. Next slide, if you could. So why the site? As I mentioned before, 20 acres. It does get used for aircraft firefighting training and certification. We're not suggesting to not continue to do that. In fact, when the site is not being used for fire training, it's a perfect forum to be able to have UAS companies come out and do their tests right on site. So it maximizes utilization of the facility, and the end result by this is it helps reduce the cost of operation for County Fire and de facto the airport itself. The county itself, though, is a great partner to have in this because, of course, we have the largest fire district in the U.S. So the exposure that these companies have to, one of the largest operators out there is a real attractant. We're getting a lot of interest just because of the County Fire brand. And obviously, as the supervisors mentioned before, it's a brand new opportunity for creating and showcasing San Bernardino County as a leader in UAS technology, because there are a number of companies here that are at the forefront. Next slide, if you could. So the concept of the center, again, is a permit from County Fire with the advisory board. I think I'm looking at it right now, with the working group contributing to content, You, because you're putting up the initial money, would also be reviewing the operations and finances on a year-to-year basis. But we do see a lot of opportunity for grant funds. U.S. Department of Commerce, I've had discussions with their leadership, and they're very interested in this. They invested, as you know, in the InTech Center, and this is a whole nother chapter in something hopefully similar. And then there's an ability to raise revenue out of this. So companies would have to pay a fee to come test. We would provide essentially liaison services to get the FAA clearances for them, and then make sure there's on-site space to store the products themselves. And then eventually, we can hopefully attract flight schools. So to use the classroom to actually certify UAS pilots. So we can get, you certified to fly a plane down at Worldwide Wings right now, but nobody in this backyard right now has a place to certify UAS pilots. So we're getting quite a bit of traction in that too. Next slide, if you could. So I want to show some folks off here. Caltech was an amazing experience, and they want to come back and do another flight test in a more robust fashion, and we'll get you guys all invites once we can get that locked down with FAA. But the real entrepreneur in this is a little company called Esri. So several weeks ago, they were kind enough to consider using us as a guinea pig and bring some of their latest GIS technology to do the first large-scale drone flight that we've had here at the center. So they were out coordinating with us for a few weeks leading up to it and brought their entire team out to prepare this. And what we want to play for you is what they went ahead and did in showcasing us and their new technology at their federal GIS conference in DC a few weeks ago. So Jen, if you would, indulge us.
Together with my colleague, Madeline Shorin, we're going to guide you through 3 quick technology demonstrations of exciting new technology running in the cloud and on the edge, enabling field operations, connected or disconnected. First up is a complete end-to-end cloud SaaS solution using SiteScan for ArcGIS to plan drone flights, improve drone operation workflows, and streamline image processing.
Thanks, James. We'll start our journey in Southern California, where the San Bernardino Airport is developing rapidly. Using Esri's way-back imagery, we can see changes over the last few years, from 2014 to 2017 and 2019. This year, the airport has begun construction for a new air cargo facility. And to keep stakeholders informed, it's critical to capture construction progress over the entire area of interest in near real time. With SiteScan for ArcGIS, we can track this progress. Out in the field at the San Bernardino Airport, we have a drone, the controller, and an iPad. The first step is to develop the flight plan on the iPad. Selecting the Flight Plans widget and choosing Area Survey, SiteScan for ArcGIS connects directly to ArcGIS Online, where we can access web maps and layers for reference. And now, we're ready to craft the plan. Very simply, I drag the vertices of the plan over the area of interest. The flight path is automatically generated, and the taskbar at the bottom of the screen updates dynamically. If we fly at 200 feet, the flight will take about 108 minutes at 0.7-inch pixel resolution and require about 5 batteries. SiteScan for ArcGIS allows the pilot to interactively explore different flight options. For example, setting the flight altitude to 400 feet, the flight time is cut in half, pixel resolution remains high, and battery needs are dramatically reduced. This flight will capture 371 images to be processed later. If we were really in the field at the airport, we would have the drone go through its pre-flight checklist, and then it would follow the flight path as specified, capturing images along the way. Once the drone returns, the next step is to process the imagery in the cloud. Opening the SiteScan Manager in the web browser, we'll add the captured photos to an existing project for the airport. Very simply, to begin processing, we drag and drop photos from the drone's SD card directly into the uploader. The images will begin processing automatically and can be shared to our ArcGIS online organization, harnessing the power of the cloud. Let's fast forward and look at processed results from a flight last month. Turning on the orthomosaic and zooming in just west of the construction site is the San Bernardino Emergency Training Facility, where trainees are exposed to live fire conditions across various aircraft types. Here, we can even see fire hoses laid out and ready for use in an exercise with this plane and helicopter. Flying over to the construction site, we can see activity removing an unneeded part of the runway, or taxiway. SiteScan also produced 3D information, including a digital terrain model and digital surface model. Let's bring this data into a web scene and use measurement tools to analyze it. Flying back down to the construction site, we'll use a before and after digital terrain model to measure volume change over the most recent construction area. Dropping in a quick polygon, the construction progress is calculated. About 20,000 cubic meters have been graded. This completes our drone workflow for today, all using the power of the cloud.
For many of you here, processing your imagery in the cloud meets the bulk of your needs. Coming from a military background, however, I know that there's also a lot of you who need to disconnect that processing power from the cloud and deploy it to the field. Said another way,
on
to
your
the edge.
site, and it'll actually
part
be,
two,
we'll have it
we're
on
going
our
to use
website
ArcGIS
here,
Enterprise
so anybody
running
can
on a
tour it.
Microsoft
The
Azure
good folks at
stack
Esri
with
also
clients.
did a demonstration on Unical with all their aircraft out there. That's also following on this, but for the sake of your time, I just wanted to showcase that. And again, the Esri folks have been fantastic partners in this journey with us. You know, I kind of rambled on about this UAS concept, and then they actually put resources to bear on it. So we'll happily pay our license fees to Esri now, again and again. And they were also kind enough to have you know, Jen Ferris and her team who do RGIS come down to get some specific training. So it's been a real good partnership, and I hope we have a lot more to come in the future. On that note, though, John Calkins is the lead behind the Geo Experience Center at Esri, and so he is responsible for making this a reality, and we want to say thank you here. Supporting him is a gal named Jennifer Burrows, who's right back there. And Michelle, I think we've got a couple of mementos to say thank you to these guys, so they can remember our airport. All right, so that concludes our report, and Supervisor wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, to the chair, just
Go
a
ahead.
couple of things. First of all, apologize for being late. I was just having the privilege to meet with Jack at Esri right before I came here, so that's why I was
good
late.
timing.
Having a whole bunch of technology futurist discussions with them, so they're a great partner to have both the county and here, and many countries around the world, and that their hands full now tracking coronavirus and the software and a bunch of teams going on, so they have their hands full. But I appreciate you and the board taking the leap into a new field that had the privilege to hear about the future when I was in the legislature working on the legislation here in California of what drones and drone technology can be and what it is doing right now for the future. And it gives us a unique opportunity for San Bernardino to take a leadership role to try to start being known besides logistics, but also for UAVs. 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege to go up to see General Atomics up in the high desert, another fascinating place to go tour, and seeing there we had the largest footprint in the world with any 1 second every day, 60 of their drones flying out collecting intelligence around the world. The biggest message to me that day was they don't have trained personnel. They're outreaching everywhere to try to get people with basic skills to come work for them. So there's definitely a workforce drainage issue, not just with that one company, but around the industry that we can really grasp around and focus on and put resources toward, work with our education institutions from young to community college to get going. And then the uniqueness of San Bernardino County to have all this open space, yet be near population centers to be able to test the latest and greatest technologies and have clear paths for that is very unique. Ours, very unique to this airport as well. Not just for the little hovering ones, you can do that anywhere, but for the ones that take off and have to land with a landing strip, we have a very unique asset here with population around it, but an empty east area to take off and land, and we get some special. Mike has done a great job working with the FAA, building those relationships as well, and appreciate all your efforts to do this. There's a lot of coalition building to go with it. And then lastly, we're one of the West Coast logistics capital of everywhere. I was told that we're the e-retail center of the world, and this delivery mechanism, not just for getting data, but the ability to move objects from here to there, we want to be in forefront of that. And the Wall Street Journal and other publications say there's going to be hundreds of thousands of jobs of pilots, mechanics, support personnel, everything else coming in. So this is a chance for us to jump in both feet under leadership of Michael and this board to really set the stage for something unique, something to really bring us the epicenter of collection going forward. And I just want to thank you for all your efforts.
I had a couple comments and questions. It sounds like the training center is based on the firefighting land. Does that limit our ability to use these drones for besides just firefighting and?
No,
okay.
no. I use the term launch pad, which is a little facetious, but the idea is to centralize the training and test capability, but their flight plans can be whatever we can get approved through FAA for their specific devices and units. One of the technologies that Caltech showed us last week is some of the new imagery technology. I mean, Esri has an amazing product there. Caltech, it has a camera that helps firefighters determine the source of the fire. And that, with the fire center, is one of the easiest next step tests to do, is to actually get that drone actually in the field over that space. But ultimately, with Forest Service, we've been discussing longer range flights because they have to get up into our hills to protect us. It also has a capability of delivering equipment, so fire hoses and generators and water pumps to the fire line, as opposed to dragging it in manually.
Okay. Thank you. I think
so
that summarizes.
It has to evolve, though. It has to evolve. So.
And then, just of a follow-up, do we have the ability to go beyond just the unmanned drones to more of the ones that are actually large ones, not just?
As Kurt was mentioning, we got to get the regulations to also catch up.
Okay.
And fortunately, just with a couple of flights, the Esri flight being the first one, we've been introduced to an amazing gentleman in the state of Washington for FAA that approves these things, and we're getting feedback from him about, okay, maybe do it this way as opposed to that. So it is very, very fresh and new.
If I may, too, that I was pointing out the relationship that Michael's built. I went to a conference 2 weeks ago on UAVs, and it's also not just flying these things, but it's also stop flying these things. So if you're on the defensive technologies, a whole other series of technologies is for locating, pinpointing the location of the controller, or capturing the air. Some fascinating stuff out there. But FAA is trying to work and push up. That's why I like the fact that we're in that front line now. Well, I'm glad my kids haven't figured that out yet at UCLA, but so they're starting to grow these areas, and the fact that we got our toe in the door and have a relationship with FAA and that input back, I think will allow us to grow. Not that most of the things we'll see right now are going to need long runways, but eventually we'll need those runway capacity so we can start small and build our way up.
Yeah. And the FAA regional administrator, I meant to mention that earlier, was out. Mark and I hosted her and her team last week, and when she heard of this, I mean, it was both feet in. She was very supportive.
So. I'll just end with making one final comment. I recently attended CES with my son, and there were literally 40 or more booths just for drones. And it was fascinating to see all the various uses for drones, from entertainment to farming to you name it, they were being utilized. Having said that, I'm hoping, obviously, my time here is short, only one more month, but I'm hoping that we'll move forward in going beyond just training and trying to figure out a way to start manufacturing them here. I mean, that would be awesome if across the street they can start building them, because it'd be truly a job creator, but also very good for our economy. So anyway, with that, I think Mayor or someone else wanted to make a comment, but.
No, I just wanted to salute the efforts of Supervisor Hagman for his leadership on this. I know that in sitting with, on other boards with him, I know that he has a passion for technology, and I want to commend the supervisor for his good work on this. And frankly, the staff here, Mike and Mark, you've done an excellent job at interfacing with those governmental entities to provide this as another platform for our community. So, like I said in previous comments on the finances of this is a great win for our community, our region, and this is a great thing for San Bernardino International Airport. And great job, guys. This is another win in our column, and we're grateful for your help.
I think what you hear is the city of San Bernardino putting the next 100,000 into the pot, right?
That's kind of how this working group works.
I don't know. I mean.
Well, on that note, you all are out in the community, out in the world, and if you do come across companies that you find that are in this space, we are rapidly trying to put together, our inventory to be able to invite companies here to the airport to be exposed to these products, and so we want to widen that net as quickly as we can. So thank you all.
Very good. Is that just a discuss?
Yes,
And, oh, very good. So.
And
you
I
have
made
another
this
comment?
this
That's
one
okay.
more fun thing from a futuristic point of view. I don't think this stuff's too top secret, but on the General Atomics, they call it the Gray Eagle. I call it the Predator and Reaper, because that's what I know from the military language. The third one they haven't sold yet, but it's a jet propelled and it's faster than our interceptors. Can you imagine interceptor drones coming up and defending the United States without pilots? Unnoticed. So the future's there. We just have to figure out how to embrace it and civilianize it and figure out how we can use it in other places. But it's fun stuff to look at.
Well, I would love to see General Atomics actually have a base here.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we have some property for them, too.
Very good. All right, moving on to item number 8, which is consider and discuss the report on economic development. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, so March, this time of year, Alka's favorite time because it's bond disclosure month. Our annual reports are due, but they are finished and will be actually uploaded to Emma early. In fact, they're not due till the end of the month. But when we do this year by year, our friends at RSG track assessed value in our base reuse project area. And as you've seen in prior years, yet again, another record year for us. We saw a 9.6% increase in total assessed value, hitting $8.4 billion this last fiscal year. So we were about 7.5 last year, and that's a pretty mighty increase. Wanted to give you a little snapshot of where some of that's coming from. So if you go to the next slide. You all have this little agreement with Hillwood, so not all of it. As you saw earlier this year, this past year, they have been probably the most prolific in developing assets near the airport, but we thankfully are attracting additional development interests out there. So we did a similar development agreement with RITA for a substantial number of buildings in San Bernardino here this past year. And the other, I think, strength of our market is that companies that are investing in our region are staying in our region. And that is a lot to do with all of you and your respective teams by making this a business-friendly environment. And so I would just encourage you and your staff to keep up the good work there because, the development's never easy, but the easier you can make it, the more investment and economic growth we're going to continue to see. So what's on the horizon for the balance of this year? If you go to the next slide. We've talked about this site, North Gate, as you heard from Mr. Magnus many times, as in an homage to Norton Air Force Base. Every phase of development they do is named after a gate. So reminiscent of our original guard shacks at the entry points of our facility. But North Gate is right across the street. So it's the vacant land. It's one of the last former base holdings that are in the development portfolio for us. But it's one of the toughest because there's a lot of third-party owners surrounding it. So as you all know, we've been working hard and heavy, Ms. Pritchett and I, on trying to get some federal land releases from the National Park Service and Health and Human Services so we can consolidate the properties. But in case you hear about it, Hillwood is engaging, as we speak, with City of San Bernardino development staff in doing site plan reviews to get prepared for that. We actually have a call with NPS later this week. So I wanted to give you the two options. One is a roughly 400,000 square foot consolidated design. The other is a combination of two buildings, a slightly smaller unit, about 122,000, adjacent to a future 479,000. These are industrial, but they allow for flex tech and limited retail uses should the market bear those. The city's team is working hand in hand on setbacks and aesthetics. There's, I think, a few more iterations of these before we're done. You know, where the truck queuing and all that sets up, I provided some comments to Hillwood to keep at the drawing board on this. But if you hear about Northgate, that's what it is, but also that's what it's not. It's just the next chapter in the Hillwood portfolio. Next slide, if you could, Jen. So this is our specific plan boundary. So we have the tech studies for the flood control channel and the traffic modeling. The traffic should be completed next week, and then San Bernardino and Highland staff will have those to go through and approve. That means that by this summer, I'm projecting that we have the draft plan in front of you all to start reviewing concepts and zoning and those kinds of recommendations. But you know, because this area has been neglected so long, and it's 600 acres, it's taken a considerable amount of study to get our act together here. But timing's good, but I want to keep pressing this because obviously East Valley has their facilities under construction, and our friends at San Manuel are getting ready to start doing some development in their holdings. So we want to make sure that we're catching up with the market here. So next slide. So that's our famous flood control channel. There's a theme here, you know. We have flood control channels at Mountain View. We have flood control channels north of the airport. I never knew we'd be in the flood control business, but we're making it work. So that blue area is the one that is owned by the airport. The red is what County Flood has jurisdiction on, and thankfully we've been able to adapt a future design that meets floods needs as well as that of the regional board, because we got to be able to permit the construction too. So that, as I said, is completed, blessed by flood, and so it's going into the plan now. Next slide. Your big Mountain View investment, we've already talked about that. The on and off ramps at I-10 obviously are buttoning up now thanks to Loma Linda and their city manager managing that project. And then we meet in the middle after we get through Mission Creek. So that will continue through the rest of this year. But despite what Mr. Wolf will tell you, we are coordinating with the passenger rail project extensively. We are. So if you hear otherwise, please let me know. And then last but not least here, we have a brand new $7 million project that we've been coordinating with City of Highland and San Manuel. This will complete most of the infrastructure upgrades north of the airport in the City of Highland back to the 210 freeway. So anybody that's gotten off the 210 lately over in Highland, it too is under construction with the HOV lane widening out there with SBCTA. So we are pushing to get this out for bid in the next month or so, and then hopefully under construction this summer. It'll take about 7 months to construct, when all said and done. But Highland is the lead on that because it's in their jurisdictional boundaries. We're co-applicants on the grant. And then next slide, I think, wraps us up. That's the latest and greatest. If you look down to the lower left at the former Waterman Golf Course down there, that is your fourth Amazon e-fulfillment center in your project portfolio. So that puts us at over 3 million square feet of Amazon facilities at Alliance, California. So I think we have more here than they do in Texas now. So congratulations. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 9, we're going to review the status of our action plan. Mr. Burrows.
All right, hard to believe we're in March already, but you just got your update on the Northgate development. I wanted to get a little ahead of the economic development update for next month, just because we got the most recent numbers in. But we are working on a couple of additional programs. You all had previously discussed the CREA, the wonderful acronym that is becoming easier for me to understand. And I hope to have an update for you on that at your next meeting. And then with our new finance director coming on board, we're actually going to start budget early this year with him, just to make sure that he'll be happy with the presentation and make sure we got fresh eyes on it. So we probably will see that draft coming to you in the May timeframe in advance of the June adoption. So that's what we got cooking here, and happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the end of our agenda. Let's see if there's any public comments. No public comments. Any comments from any board members? Oh, everybody's quiet today. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn until April the 8th. Thank you very much.